How's it going, everybody? My name is Carter Hall, and with me today on the screen with me is the owner of Empower PT, um, Evan Jones. Thank you for coming out, man. Thank you for making time out.
You bet, man. I'm excited to do this. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We were just talking off screen a little bit. I got like a million thank yous to say because we've been doing this for a minute, but I'm happy to finally be doing it with you. First and foremost, too, I'll say thank you, and also thank you for your service because doing a little bit of research, you were in the Air Force and did a lot of great things prior to PT, and so kind of like that. If you want to get into it, like I say, everybody has like a beginning to their story, how they got into it, right? For you, I was gonna say, how did you get interested in the Air Force?
First of all, you're welcome, man. I'm excited to do this. So, for the service, I always tell people I enjoyed it quite a bit. So, that's a huge part of my life. And obviously, where I've gotten to, I wouldn't have been able to get to without my time in the service. Really growing up, I don't know that I had a lot of big goals or what I thought I was going to get into. And then finally, it was getting into high school and had a couple of buddies and a family member that had gone into the military, and I started kind of getting the idea of it and just kind of, service in the biggest, in a bigger grand scheme of things. I guess just, kind of something bigger than yourself. And I didn't think school was right for me at the time. And I just thought, you know what, go do something and make something of yourself. So um, I had a cousin that had gone in the Air Force. And that was the main reason I had joined the Air Force. Um, and got into security forces, recruiters showed me some cool videos, some good training stuff, shooting guns, all the fun stuff training wise.
Yeah.
So that's kind of got to motivate me that way. Never gotten in any combat action or anything like that. I definitely spent some years overseas, supported some different missions and whatnot. But all in all, my service is some of my fondest memories and is a huge part of why I'm at where I'm at. And so I'm very thankful for my ability to serve and very much appreciated what it's helped me become long term. So,
Most definitely, man. And just going, you said going like doing everything like that, just going overseas and doing a lot of amazing things. So it sounds like you just doing a lot of great things. Like you said, did like you're overseas and all this amazing things. But just listening to that was like fitness. Like, what was your fitness level at? Like, because you're known as a PT guy or you're PT, and you're obviously incorporated CrossFit with that, right? So was CrossFit like ever like in that realm at all, or what was that like at the time?
yeah, no, really also growing up, I wasn't huge into, I'd play some intramural sports, basketball, things like that, but I was never one to kind of hit the gym or anything like that. It wasn't until I got in the military, and it was kind of like a fitness for most kind of thing. Daily calisthenics, push-ups, pull-ups, running, all the good stuff. I probably didn't really discover the gym and adding weights into the routines probably midway into my Air Force career. Um, Overseas, actually, I guess, we'd be on deployments, we'd have some gym opportunities. You had a lot of downtime, and so obviously started making the most of that. Started kind of getting into studying uh, fitness. You kind of like think of the basic magazines, Muscle Fitness, just the different ones, obviously showing different programs and things like that. And I really started getting the idea of, okay, well, how do I kind of create this well-rounded program? I want to check a lot of boxes. Military guy, right? I gotta be ready for endurance stuff. Golf got to add strength and just kind of that the different facets of, I guess, fitness. Although I didn't fully understand that at the
Mhm.
time. I just knew I wanted to do is be as good at as many things as I could. Um, and so that kind of garnered my fitness journey. And then when I got out of the military, I was still interested in fitness, and I actually got a personal training certificate. I was going to do some of that on the side as I was in school. And then I was going to go back to school as an athletic trainer, working with, team sports, things like that, I guess, kind of helping with
Right.
rehab type of thing. Then I got a job at a physical therapy clinic as a tech. And I started just kind of seeing people utilizing exercise to help people move better and do the things they want to. And that was my aha moment that that's where I want to be. That's what I want to be doing as a physical therapist. So then it was just a matter of going full throttle with school. Another caveat with the military, right? I had my GI Bill, kind of helped me out with some of the schooling, got me through my undergrad, a little bit part of my doctorate, then obviously, what I need to take care of that. But it was just merging, I guess, the evolution of my desire to understand fitness in the realms of that, and then finding a career that helped me implement that every day, but on a how do you help people move better kind of thing. And I think we're going to get into this maybe here in a little bit, but this is also what kind of eventually got me into Empower Physical Therapy, or just kind of starting my own clinic, or kind of where I saw that I wanted to be able to treat people every day, was utilizing fitness as much as possible. So not just, somebody comes to me with knee pain, just not getting their knee better, but what's their underlying fitness like? Because usually that's the problem. There's been a shortfall as far as taking care of yourself in the way that you need to, that has created these issues long term. Back pain is the number one injury issue limitation in this country. We spend all this kind of money at it, but it tells me we're not kind of addressing
Yeah.
it the way we need to.
Yes, sir.
But what we're seeing a lot is just kind of understanding how do you get yourself stronger, right? And how do you implement those things? Well, the physical therapist, that's our bread and butter, right? We prescribe exercise every day for rehab, but it's also how are we dosing that stuff? And so a lot of things of my past and taking care of myself, and then better learning how to make sure that I was as well rounded of fitness as I could for myself, and then trying to implement that every day with my patients. So I know that was a long answer for a short. I don't know. But that's how I
No,
got into how fitness basically evolved with me, and then how it's kind of obviously then garnered into what I want to do every day as a physical therapist.
and that was a great answer. You touched on a lot of great things too. Just hitting back and listening to it because man, that's a great answer. It wasn't long winded at all. I loved it. I was sitting back like listening to. I'm like, oh yeah, this is really cool to see hearing all this little stuff from like your perspective.
Well,
So yes, sir. So um, with you touched on something earlier too, was programming, and you said oh like touching like building strength and the fun like doing fundamental stuff and everything like that to like make sure like your own like where your fitness level is and gaining strength. So was programming like always a big thing for you to like learning like since day one, programming has always been a big thing for you, right?
So I look at more my evolution of prescription exercise prescription programming. Like if I'm seeing a patient for, let's go back with back pain, right? It's the number one issue out there that we see people for, is understanding what is the underlying issue, right? Is it a mobility issue? Your body just doesn't move as much as it should. Is it a pain issue that's limiting you? How to better address that with balance between mobility exercise, flexibility, being able to move your joints and your muscles, lengthening and shortening, all that kind of stuff, and then the strength to move your body through that, or then also carry and push and pull things that we do every day in life. And so being able to check all those boxes of mobility, flexibility, endurance, strength, and how do you do that with each patient, right? Because that's how life is, right? We go through different life, with our family, and doing things around the house, or going outdoors and doing the things that we love. It's a mixture of all those things, and so we want to try to implement that stuff, as pertinent as it is with each patient. So the balance of understanding how do you check a lot of those boxes, programming wise, but also the patient's goals in mind, right? Not everybody
Yeah,
wants to go be a CrossFit athlete. Not everybody wants to go ride mountain bikes. A lot of people I see every day, it's just a matter of how to hang out with my kiddos, my grandkids better. I want to not hurt and enjoy life, more when I go on vacation, those kinds of things. So it's just a matter of finding out where they're at, what their goals are, but then maybe also giving them an idea of understanding, hey, if you want to do these things, if your body is not at a certain capacity to do that long term, you're going to start to experience more and more breakdown. And those things of life are just going to get harder and harder, and eventually get to where you stop not doing them. And then, of course, once you don't really do the things you enjoy, quality of life, right? Then we're just
sure.
we're angry and angry, and we don't get to do what we want to. So it's always about coming down to the patient's goals in front of me, and then understanding what makes them tick, and then how do we get them to kind of implement the things that are going to help them keep doing those things. So that's kind of the programming, I guess we get into that, and then it's just a matter of meeting people where they're at and where they want to go.
Yes, sir. That's another great thing. Another great thing about just fitness, right? Just learning like where you're at, like learning to build upon, like building, like you said, just learning what you're doing and really like applying it to what you do. Because like you said, like, whether if you're CrossFit or mountain biking, etc. Because I just me personally, I do CrossFit. Like there's no way I'm doing mountain biking. I see an echo bike and I want to go the opposite direction. So, so whenever but I was just thinking this too when you were talking too, because you touched on something that kind of like sparked an interest or brought up a question or topic. So how do you balance out like when someone's like you said, someone's maybe their knees giving them problems or certain body parts giving them problems, whatever, like and really working towards it and like building that up versus someone who feels good and not like overdoing it. How do you find that balance?
So I'll answer, I think, your the question. Again, the reason people are coming in, a caveat of different reasons. Let's say I'm working with my CrossFit athlete that really they're just hurt their knee and they're just trying to squat better, right? Squats are irritating, or they're having some shoulder issues. And there's a lot of overhead pressing, a lot of pulling, a lot of different things going on there. None of the movements are obviously actually bad, but you start to look at volume, right? Are we doing too much? Typically I see it's maybe a programming not here flaw, but maybe at their gym or whatnot. There's just a lot of redundant movements, so they're doing a lot of overhead pulling and pushing, pressing, and different things. And so you get to a point where it's hey, the shoulders start to get a little cranky, like hey, we haven't had the proper recovery in this area, and so it's a matter of just having that conversation about hey, when we're getting into these. Just being aware of that kind of stuff. And then we talk about, right, how do we give the shoulder some TLC, some tender loving care to make sure to try to avoid it being a long-term issue. I'm always going to make sure that people use the gym as best as possible when rehabbing. The worst thing we can do is stay away from the gym. It's just a matter of finding where you at. Again, we talk about the goals and stuff as well. But how are we going to use it to keep our body? Because we know exercise is a fantastic, gives us fantastic benefits, recovery, and helping blood
Most
flow
definitely.
and oxygen to the tissue that need it for as it goes through that repair cycle. But if I have somebody that's post-op on a knee or something like that, total knee surgery or a shoulder rotator cuff repair or something like that, if it's a shoulder, I can work my lower body, right? If it's a knee or a lower body, I can work out my upper body, and I can do the things to get my heart ticking, to really kind of pump blood throughout. But then I just get the nice recovery stuff, and that's going to help my recovery that much better. So again, it just comes down to finding why the person is coming to see us first, right? Is it a overuse injury, sport, fitness issue, weekend warrior type thing? Is it a long-term issue? They've had some sort of surgical intervention or something, and so we just got to find, it's every day just a little bit different on where the person's currently at and what we're trying to get to, and having those conversations about what's appropriate. But ultimately, we got to stay active. We just got to find what intensity, what volume is going to be right to make sure that we maximally recover for the long term.
Yes, sir. I think, like you said, like recovery is a big thing too, and just the overall fitness world. Because just growing up, excuse me, growing up, I what I love about like uh Empower is that like y'all just not just a physical or a PT place, but y'all also incorporate, like you said, fitness, CrossFit, different movements where it's like high interval training, different things like that too. Like really like okay, like what let me reword this. So CrossFit, or not CrossFit really, but what I love about CrossFit too, I guess, is everything is scalable. So you can really like build upon, like, hey, like you said, doing XYZ to make a body movement feel better. Like where are you at? Like building strength on that was is really cool because I never would have thought that when I was first getting into CrossFit. At least if it was there, I was super blind to it. But I was like, man, like that's really cool. Like I never really thought like how like crazy recovery can be. Or really like you said moving like if like I did a lot of lunges the other day for a workout at CrossFit 806, right? So I woke up the next day, I'm like, man, my legs, my whole lower body was killed. Like I did not want to do anything that day. I was like, today just might be a rest day, honestly. Um, so I was gonna say like I got lucky with my brother Brandon being a PT. So he always taught me like, hey, just do this XYZ. Let's move this better. Let's do that. But everybody, well, unfortunately, doesn't have that. maybe, or maybe they just see like, okay, this let's do this and just keep no this body part just keeps nagging me, and they just keep working through it, which is I think completely crazy. So it's pretty cool to see like this world grow too, I think personally. But I don't know.
Yeah, so to build off, it's just, and this is as a field, so this is right my passion for physical therapy. I'm hoping the field will continue to evolve. Is getting, when patients, when people get hurt initially, the sooner we can see people, right, the better we can get into figuring out, why did you have that irritation to begin with? Functionally, what can we do, or what do we need to do to address and help that, that the pain part of it, right? There's pain associated or whatnot, or restriction if you're just not moving very well, that kind of stuff, tight, stiff, that kind of stuff, and figuring out how you can use movement to reduce pain, how you can use movement to obviously help increase movement. But the key is it's repetition, it's consistency over time, that kind of stuff. But utilizing the gym, and that's where our field, right, it has to harness that, right? We got to get people and show them the way, and we've got to be the ones that are, kind of leading from the front on that, is taking care of ourselves, understanding movement, how to properly utilize a full range of motion, how to strengthen through full ranges of motion, using aerobic components to make sure your heart's healthy, that kind of stuff, so that we can turn around and talk to our patients about how you do that. And so the next time you get hurt in the gym, or you're hopefully doing the things to take care of you, you're not going to make yourself 100% bulletproof. You're going to make yourself a lot more resilient, right? So hopefully your injuries are a lot less often, or if you do have an injury, it doesn't prolong, it doesn't last as long, right? Because your body repairs and recovers fantastically, especially if you're giving it the good stuff to take care of itself long term. But knowing that if I hurt myself, if I lift a little heavier, or doing something maybe that I'm not used to doing, and my back's a little cranky, or my shoulder's a little angry or something like that, come see your PT, right? Let's do the stuff we need to. We do some hands-on stuff to kind of help calm the system a little bit, get that pain down just a little bit, but then utilize movement to keep, right, because we know movement is going to be the best help long term. And the more independent people can get with that, right, the less reliant they become on the healthcare system and all those things, saving money in your pocket, right,
So,
being able to just enjoy life, right? So we're getting a lot of big grand scheme of things, but at the end of the day, we just got to know how to utilize exercise and movement to help people get to feeling better, so they can keep doing that kind of stuff, because usually that's quality of life. That's how we feel really good. So
yes, sir. And
hopefully that's good.
yeah, of course, it was great. So, like you said, valuing, you said certain things is a great thing to go about it because, just like you said, certain things crank, like you said, something's feeling bad today. Like, oh, is it something like it starts out something I can do differently? Like, it's pretty cool. If you want to talk about it, is that you and sorry, that CrossFit 806 and Power actually y'all have a partnership right now, and which is pretty cool because like you're seeing PTs in the actual CrossFit space now. Where you said earlier, it's like, oh man, there's a lot of a lot of different things that go into CrossFit, right? So, um, someone who probably walks in feeling great, but like, man, my shoulder, this, that's feeling bad. So when you have an actual PT there with you, like yourself or someone else who's like, oh man, like what do I do to get over this? And you have someone there to like evaluate, okay, like what's going on, blah 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 blah. Like this is what's going on, let's fix it and go from there. Which is pretty cool to see that too. I when I saw that, I'm like, man, finally, this is pretty cool to see, I think. But I don't know, that's just me personally.
It So I've had, my career evolution has been significant, has changed. So I graduated from PT school in 2015. And I'll admit, the first few years I was, I, again, from the military, all of that, I have been taking care of myself. I had done some basic stuff, typical probably bodybuilding type stuff, strength training wise. We do my cardio stuff. Still in the military, did some Air National Guard stuff. So I was still running and doing calisthenics, things like that. I was starting to let myself go a little bit though. I was not taking care of myself for a while. Then COVID happened, and things slowed down as far as work every day. Right, not a lot of people were going to clinics at that point, at that time. So I had some downtime to start looking at. Just kind of how my career was progressing and my own little, check on where I was at personally, taking care of myself. Um, Went and had some good, went to a, oh gosh, sorry. Went to 2020. went to a seminar that was about how are we dosing stuff in the clinic and that kind of stuff. And the typical like 3 by 10 model, is it really that bad as far as prescription exercise? And the biggest thing they were talking about is we were underdosing people. We are way underdosing people. We're barely challenging, scratching the surface with what we can get. And unfortunately, that's where our field is having a lot of pushback. Like, oh, you just go do physical therapy. You just got to go check that box. So you can go and do the surgery, the injection, or whatever, whatever you got to get to. But it's because as physical therapists, we weren't properly dosing. So to make the change that we need to, right? So because you learn about intensity and volume, those kinds of things to actually make tissue get stronger, you have to go through that repair and recovery cycle, that kind of thing, those kinds of things. Discovered the Institute of Clinical Excellence. I got to give them a shout out because definitely significantly changed my vision on what I could be doing for myself, also my patients, right? Because it kind of goes hand in hand. The life I live and want to feel good about, that's the kind of stuff that I want my patients doing, and I've got to keep doing it. So, but they show how utilizing, and they are all typically CrossFitters or doing something in that form. There's endurance athletes and things like that. But I'd say the higher percentage of them are doing some form of CrossFit for their general fitness plan. And so then I, took some classes. I learned how, as a rehab provider or clinical management of the fitness athlete, is one of the certifications that I got through their group, was understanding how to, first of all, look at a movement, a deadlift, a squat, Olympic movements, barbell movements, and understand what the movement should look like, right? The points of performance, and then start to look at, okay, if there's issues in those different points of performance, what might those be able to be like breakdown, right? Is it a performance issue or is it a mechanical issue? Is it something on board, a pain, a joint limitation, something that's creating that? So the more that I understand that, right, the better I can help maybe coach the issue if it's really just a performance thing, and then that fixes it right up. Or if not, then we can, look at it as the PT brain. Okay, let's move you. Let's kind of figure out why we're having those issues so we can clean that up and get back to the points of performance. But the better I understand that as a PT, right, a lot better carryover from my clinic out into the real world, right, or out into the gym. CrossFit has been, as far as training for my own personal life, it just checks too many boxes. And hopefully we're getting past the point now where for a long time, and I still hear things, it's unfortunate, the naiveness at CrossFit creates all these injuries and those kinds of things. But research doesn't support that, right? They're right along with running, and way less than like football. And I mean, all the other sports and things like that. Like CrossFit is the top-notch fitness plan out there. Where people get into issues is, if you don't have a great system as far as what is your onboarding, right? Coaching can be a huge part of that, right? If we're pushing too hard, too fast. Mechanics is the ultimate part. So we need people to understand how to move and what the movement should feel like and look like, and then build the intensity up from there. But you got to have the mechanics down first. Underlying injuries, right? And we go back to people not moving as well as they should, and then trying to do a movement that asks them, if I'm asking somebody to do a shoulder press, but their movement, right? If I need them to do a strict overhead here, but they can't move here, right? That's the farthest thing to get. They're trying to force that movement. I'm going to create shoulder issues. Overhead pressing is fantastic, right? I need to be able to do that for life, right? Reaching over into cabinets and things like that. So I do that every day, relatively, as far as how heavy that might be, a cup versus a barbell. But it's being able to understand, hey, I've got a shoulder thing that's keeping me, or an upper back thing that's keeping me from actually being able to reach overhead. So let's clean that stuff up. So as a physical therapist, understanding what a movement looks like, being able to look at, okay, is it a mechanical thing, the body's just not letting you get there, and that's creating the injury? Or is it just kind of the how you're performing it, right? So as a physical therapist, understanding the movement, being in the gym and being able to see it and then coach it as well, right? It just kind of helps, I think, make that much easier too. When I'm also telling a patient that's not exercising at all, hey, I've got this really cool thing as far as I think will help you long-term towards general fitness. Let's work on it in the gym, right? And that's where in this gym we've built out so that we can meet anybody where they're at. And we talked about scaling earlier, right? If you're just learning how to squats or bending over and picking stuff up, we do it in the gym. We do it with relatively light loads, but you figure out how to use the equipment. So you can go to any gym. I'm biased towards a CrossFit gym, but I'm not going to tell. I want people to go where they're going to be consistent.
Yes, sir.
over the long term, because that's what's going to benefit you health wise, right? But the more I understand what movement should look like at its purest form and then being able to break it down, right, that just makes it so much easier to sell that every day in the clinic. So I know, again, I'm long winded, but that's just kind of, I want to make sure I get that out there. So
No, no worries. I love it. I love hearing all this because, um, it's just, he said there's so many things that like people. He said consistency, right? People like don't really realize like, man, like I just noticed this lately in the last like few months is just doing CrossFit at CrossFit 06, but like, man, like there's so many like variables. Like he said, just be able to do a soda press or doing something like it's like there's like little movements that you do in the gym that kind of cross over into real world, right? Like I see, and I say real world, like out of the gym.
yeah, yeah.
So like I said, picking something out of a cabinet, doing something. It's like it's little stuff like that that people don't really like. I don't think they really necessarily like take into consideration in a good way, if that makes sense. Like if that's helping, if something's like you said, hurting you or doing something, not hurting, so hurting, but like if like you said, like I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Like if having a full range of motion, right, and your shoulders are doing something or going below parallel and a squat or something like that, like doing something like to pick something up. It's like a little stuff like that here and there can like really like help you the long way, I think too, because PT, it's like you said, um, man, it just going getting something worked on could really help you lifelong too. I think I don't know. That's just me, like outside person looking in. I don't know anything about PT, so I'm just a guy with a podcast. So just
I'll say,
so
like, some of the biggest things we see is, again, getting people more comfortable with movement. And ultimately, it comes down to some basic movement, squatting, right? Being able to sit down and get up from a chair or getting out of a car, bending over to pick something up, a deadlift, right? And unfortunately, I hear that there's scary thoughts about deadlift. Um, your shoulders don't need to go, a certain range overhead, that kind of thing. But we ask our body to do these things every day. It's just relative as far as the intensity, right? If I'm picking up my kid off the floor, I'm doing a deadlift, right? It's a relative intensity versus a barbell. But the more I train myself with the barbell, appropriately and build that intensity up over time. Again, I'm building up that capacity, right? So my body's much more tolerable lifting a heavier weight. So when I go pick up my kiddo or boxes or do that kind of stuff over the weekend, that's gonna be a lot less taxing my body. But if I'm never doing this over here with the barbell and the training, right, then this issue over here lifting my kiddo, that kind of stuff becomes much more of an intense movement for my body. I'm going to be much more sensitive to an injury, right? I'm much more at risk with those kinds of things. The deadlift is a beautiful movement as far as strengthening your body to pick things up, right? As long as, again, the mechanics are done right, you can coach and get that cued right. And then you build up the intensity over time as you get more tolerant for it. But you got to build up that capacity so that that is not a harmful movement. We unfortunately just hear too much in my gym or clinic here is that I was told that deadlifts are bad for me, and that's just when you put your trust in the healthcare system and somebody tells you that, right? Now you're like, whoa, you're gonna stop doing that stuff. Same thing with squats. I hear people all the time. Well, I was told not to squat, not to go below 90. But the research shows our knee is much more protected below 90. We actually put ourselves in a more dangerous position when we only go to 90. So again, another moment that bad information, not great information is being put out there by, maybe a first point of contact in your healthcare injury arena. And it, you think you're giving somebody some good information, but the more we can get those individuals earlier on and educate and why these movements are good, but then also scaling it to where they're at, that's where we're going to get a lot more bang for our buck, right? Long term, feeling better, but also much more confident and comfortable getting out to the gym and doing the things on their own long term because hey, my PT showed me the way. I feel good doing it. And now I've kind of built a comfort about, hey, what intensity feels right? You know what? So I can build up my strength long term and kind of put those things together. So um yeah, so that's just kind of things that we look at every day is teaching people how to move more comfortably, but then load it a little bit more long term so you can build up that capacity where you're just stronger and able to do those movements every day in life and not even think twice about doing it.
yes, sir. That's a lot of great things. I mean, like I'm gonna keep like saying how great everything you're saying is because, like you said, there's a lot of like you said, doing deadlifts, for example, like you said earlier. I back in the day when I first started CrossFit, like 5, 6 years ago, I was like, I wanted to I wanted to go in, lift all the heavy weight, right? I wanted to go in like I want to do 315 for one rep max, and And I was like, I was just right, being like that naive little kid, like out of high school, like, man, I just want to go do lift heavy, do this, blah, 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 impress everybody. But if you're not doing it right, that 315 is gonna hurt your back, hurt your leg, do blah, 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 blah. If you're just doing simple, I think me personally, you obviously have more experience in this world than I do, but just doing something, if you're just grabbing a broomstick, as simple as a broomstick or a PVC pipe and learning, okay, this, like learning the foundations, learning the fundamentals of this or XYZ, where do I need to put my feet at? Where do I need to put my hands at? Where do I need to do this, that at? Like just little stuff like this. And having my brother there, obviously, like I said, I'm gonna continue to say my brother Brandon. He's always puts me like, I mean, like you gotta do this, gotta blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. Like just a little bit more like that. I mean, a little bit more like different words maybe. So like back in the day, I was getting mad. I'm like, no, I want to lift. I want to do blah blah blah. I just like I would get mad, but now it's at the point where like I realized something. The light bulb went off. And I was like, man, I want to just if I don't do this correctly, I can hurt myself and just keep prolonging something, kicking the can down the road, and really like, man, like I want to, like you said, build strength. How am I going to build strength? Doing the right things and taking the right necessary steps to do that. But I think there's some people out there I'm really like looking at and like, man, there's so many great things and like values and stuff you could really see. Just take the necessary like educational routes to like learn like this is what you're doing, you know. So
I
that's just what
think,
I'm
yeah.
thinking.
So a lot of the, I always, everything I tend to preach on or talk about, I'm always going to have some sort of research along the way that's helped me get to that point. And what we see a lot with, especially like CrossFit injuries, but I think would see it across the board, is the biggest reason for those injuries are young males, right? We got that, we
Yeah.
get a little too cocky. We see the guy next to us. We want to be doing that, right? We want to get right after it, but it takes time to get to that point. So, but again, you overload it. Every injury is an overload moment, right? It's whether it's at that moment you overdid it or over time you overdid it, right? So just kind of being aware of that, but that's where also a good coach could also step in and pull somebody back a little bit. Like, hey, this is why you got to do this kind of stuff. But and then just underlying injury, right? So there's a previous injury, there's something in the past that's there, and then you start to expose it more when you start to do things through full ranges of motion. So being aware of those kinds of things. But yeah, younger males are definitely a concern for maybe doing things a little too quick, and then you kind of pull back a little
Yeah.
bit. But we'll figure that out another day, I guess.
Yes, sir. I mean, I was like that too. Just always like I was one of those. Oh, I want to do a. I had just that like that's that. I remember just being in college, like fresh in college, like middle of high school. I'm like, I'm in shape, right? I can do this, blah blah blah. And just going in there, like, no. I wish I can go back in time. You know, I had a time machine, go back, like, no, no, to do this. This Carter,
Uh,
just
Well, listen, it's probably better that I discovered CrossFit in let's see, that was 4 years ago now. So I was technically 38, 39. And so I've gotten into a point where I'm just everyday maintenance fitness is kind of where I'm at. I found a good point to kind of, I know how my body responds and the things I feel comfortable with and what I'm trying to go for towards how I felt my early 20s when I was in the military and right, I was pushing myself military wise and the training I was doing there. But you know that if you know certain things about yourself and how you might be uber competitive or a little extra risky at things, you might push yourself. So but I think that goes across the board, right? Any sport activity you get into,
sure.
if you don't know how to pull yourself back, then you could be putting yourself at risk. So
Yes, sir. Just like learning your boundaries and not to go too crazy with it, I guess.
yeah,
So a couple more questions because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but
yeah.
so like so recently I heard that I guess I don't know if there's something you want to talk about. If you won't, let's skip it. Totally cool with that. That Empower is going to be at the so there's a big competition coming up with CrossFit 806, the 806 Classic, and I heard that there's going to be y'all going to be I guess involved with it one way or another. I think would you ever imagine that like when you're first like out of like PT school or first starting your business, like man, this is all I'm starting a business. That's cool, check mark, and I'm doing this check mark. Was this ever on the horizons for you at all?
I'll tell you, Carter, it's been cool to just kind of really, I think this every week. I just kind of look at where the clinic is now and the impact we're having. We've got some really good PTs, PTAs here that are passionate about moving people. And so the biggest thing I've seen is just, word of mouth referrals. People start to say, instead of it being, my doctor told me to come here, or I got to check the box or whatnot. I've got, people are coming in here because my family member told me to come here, right? And that's huge. Starting to buy in on how we're hopefully helping evolve how physical therapy can really make an impact on somebody's life. And then to get into that realm where being able to work with individuals that have gone to that higher level of fitness and just trying to kind of be able to get to where again, I believe so much in how CrossFit and that methodology can really make a huge impact, best value for its buck, and checking a lot of the fitness attribute boxes that we want for good, good healthy active lifestyle. To be into that arena and feel like we've garnered some trust with that community, right?
Mhm.
um, it's huge. I guess just that people know about Empower at that level, and the vision that I had hoped that we would bring as a physical therapy field, and the way that we can help all individuals at the high level of the fitness level, but also those that haven't really been doing the things they need to, but being able to show them how to do those kinds of things and garner that evolution long term, being a part of those kinds of events, and knowing that we can lend a helping hand, and you have an injury or something there, but hey, we've got physical therapists there that can help out and do that kind of thing. It may not be as detrimental as you think, and being able to have that kind of on site when things happen. It's very surreal, and I'm very appreciative about where the clinic has gotten to, for where it started. And it was just me, opening up a clinic, based in a little outlet area, brought on a couple of PTs pretty quick. It's just kind of built from there, and where it's going. I'm just very fortunate for the crew that we have and to the impact or the people that we're able to reach. It's very huge, and so it's beyond what I thought it would be, and I'm still incredibly appreciative of it all the way. So every opportunity we have to kind of sell what we're trying to preach here, I'm all about. So
Awesome. It sounds like you're obviously you love what you're doing what you love. So, um, Evan, I can't thank you for coming on and saying a lot of great things. So you mentioned earlier too how like you said wanted to know more about Empower, like where can they go to like receive that information? If they want to like receive or seek more info or help, where would they need to go?
So, a couple of quick things would be give us a call. The clinic number is 806-322-2284. And we've got, our staff from the very front, the gals that kind of get us going up front, to the provider you get to in the back, understand what we're trying to do and are going to help you get there as best we can. Empowerpt.com, right? That's our landing site online. You can always submit it. Inquiry there, kind of a submission, that kind of question, that kind of stuff. So, or you can email us at support@empowerpt.com. There's a few options there. And then just, if you have an injury or that kind of stuff, tell your doc, right? Hey, your family doc, hey, I've got this knee thing, I've got this back thing. I'd love to go try and see if physical therapy can get me going there. And, thankfully we've kind of started to build up a good relationship with the surrounding clinics and stuff. And so hopefully, just letting your doc know that you want to get some physical therapy, kind of help your aches and pains, that'd be the way to go. So give us a call, go online at the website, or give us an email. We're ready to rock. So
Awesome. Well, Evan, I can't thank you enough for your time, man. I just something I've been wanting to like a long time in the making. I finally super stoked that we finally got to make it happen. So, Evan, thank you for your time, man, and I'll let's see where Empower keeps going from here, man.
absolutely, Carter, I appreciate it, man. This is, again, even this moment right here, right? Somebody has any interest in asking me about where this clinic has gotten to or come from. That's huge for me. So I appreciate it. Very thankful for you giving me or having the interest in what we're doing here. So
Of
good
course.
luck to you in all of your endeavors as well, sir.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it so much.
You bet.
Thank you to everybody watching this and hope you have a great weekend. Evan, I can't thank you enough, man. So see you later. Thank y'all.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.